there are several ways to call dyscalculia. Several names that it got over the years, from learning difficulty in math to learning disability in math. Also, people sometimes calling it dyslexia in math because it's kind of similar to dyslexia, but with respect to math, kind of similar in terms of if somebody has dyscalculia, reading, writing, languages, history, whatever, might be no problem at all for the child, but math is a difficulty. So that's the similarity to dyslexia, or one of the similarities to dyslexia, that it's affecting one domain like math, whereas other domains might not be affected by the difficulty. It also is called mathematical learning disorder, and they also put down for you the actual definition that currently Wikipedia is offering, that it's a disability that results in difficulty learning or comprehending arithmetic and difficulty in understanding numbers. This dyscalculia affects about 6% of the population. If you look at it as those children or also adults or young adults who perform 2 standard deviations below the average in math. So really have a big impairment in math. There's also a second group that you might call struggling in math, or where you would call it, or might call it like math weakness, where the difficulties are not as strong. The difficulties, or these children might be underperforming maybe 1 standard deviation in math, but where you would still look at the child and say, well, looking at the general intelligence of the child, looking at how it performs otherwise, I'm still a little bit surprised how many struggles there are in math. And then that's typically affecting about 20% of children who fall in this category. So what do you observe actually when you have kids with such difficulties, or also adults? The very first example I put down here is actually from a sociology professor that I met a couple of years ago. And she told me, at the age of 50, for her with dyscalculia, it's still not clear that if something costs $19.90, if then a $20 bill is enough to pay. Because here in 1990, it's 4 numbers. There's only 2 numbers on the bill. There are 9ers in here that she knows are larger than 2, but it's not clear to her immediately that 1990 is smaller than 20. Typical are also swappers. This could be 64 or 46, and also very typical error patterns in performing arithmetic tasks. For example, 13 plus 15 is 10 if you just sum up the digits, or 13 plus 15 might result, you might write down 46 because you kind of know, okay, it's an addition, there's something special in addition, the tens crossing, right? So you also do something special when you solve this task yourself. So maybe you do what we call inner and outer addition. You just add the outer digits and the inner digits, and that's how you get to 46 as a result of 13 plus 15. Or also a classical is that 33 minus 26 is 11, because you look at these calculation and you realize that you cannot deduct 3 minus 6. That's not possible, right? But what you can do is you can do 7 minus 6, so that's 1. And you can also do 3 minus 2, so that's also 1. So the result is 11. So a whole set of patterns which actually show that you have some algorithms at the back of your head, but you have no understanding of how big the numbers are and if the results you get are possible or likely in any way. Now, one could say that dyscalculia only affects math, but there are several papers showing that people with dyscalculia, for example, also earn less and spend less money during their lifetimes. They fall ill more often, and they are more often in conflict with the law. Also, they need more support and help at school. So on the one hand, dyscalculia is actually a socioeconomical problem also, but it's also that there's a lot of psychological strain on the kids and also their families sometimes, because these bad prospects are looming, and it's a strain for them to overcome these difficulties so they don't fall into these patterns that too often affect people with dyscalculia. Unfortunately, it's quite challenging for schools to deal with dyscalculia because there's hardly any efficient material available. And also there's really little time of professionals usually to support those children, if there are professionals available at all, or at least professionals taught in dyscalculia intervention. Because I just read again at the end of September a paper published by the US government that there's a teacher shortage of qualified teachers, and teachers just, sometimes don't have the qualification to support kids, and that makes it difficult for the schools to support children with dyscalculia. And also, there's hardly any means to train independently, autonomously. So really, intervention very often requires one-to-one situations, one-to-one instructions, which are hard to provide with limited time and the teacher shortage. That's particularly a problem because practice makes permanent in math. Math skills are automated. It's not enough to just know the concepts of math. You have to automate a lot of math, and I'll make an example on the next slide. Like a piano player, a piano artist, it's not enough to know that there's a C key and the D key and an E key, etc. And you don't not enough to know the black keys and the white keys. You actually have to practice, and you have to move semi-consciously over the board, over the keys on a piano. And you also have to have this automation when you want to do math. But this requires regular training, this automation, and that's hard to organize. So to put it mildly, very often children make less progress than everybody would hope for.